I'm going to record the English lecture. So good morning. Today we are going to be taking information, discussing from this book, Important Matters. And as you can see, I'm kind of not very coordinated for holding stuff up in front of the computer. Today we're on page 41 in this book, for those of you who have a copy of it. And this is where we are with the French Sangha. We're studying this. And today we've got a couple of new people joining us. So we hope that this information might be interesting, maybe something that you've not heard before. So in the Lotus Sutra, the text of the Lotus Sutra begins, "Thus have I heard." And so once you get past the title and translator notes and everything, the very first words of the Lotus Sutra are, "Thus have I heard." And this is Ananda, one of the Buddha's major disciples, who is saying, "Thus have I heard." And as we read the text in English, it sounds like that all that follows is what he heard. But Nichiren, and actually Chihi before Nichiren, from the 5th century in China, interpret this to mean that Myoho Renge Kyo, which is the title of the Lotus Sutra, the Chinese characters, the Chinese pronunciation of the Saram Pundarika Sutra, Myoho Renge Kyo is actually what Ananda heard. And everything that follows after "Thus have I heard" is an explanation of Myoho Renge Kyo. When we read it, "Thus have I heard," and everything that follows, we think that the explanation is primary direction of the "Thus have I heard." But in actuality, Myoho Renge Kyo is the primary direction of what was heard. Myoho Renge Kyo, I'm going to read directly from the book here. The Lotus Sutra begins with the phrase, "Thus have I heard." We may interpret it to mean that the text that follows is the teaching, and in so doing, ignore or pass over the title of Myoho Renge Kyo. Many readers, that's, you know what the book is called, and so you start reading. It's Harry Potter, and you start reading. Or it's Moby Dick, and you start reading. And this is really not what we should be doing. We should be doing Myoho Renge Kyo. Thus have I heard. To do so would be an error, as what was heard was the title. Myoho Renge Kyo with the text following an explanation. The title is the teaching. The text is an explanation of what the teaching means. So both the title and the text are deeply connected, and both are necessary. We can't do one without the other. And, the more we study, the more we learn how that relationship exists and deepens, and what it means to us. So both the title and the text are deeply connected, and both are necessary. Myoho Renge Kyo we could think of it as the key to unlock a door. Or if we want to take the analogy a little bit further, we could take it to be the mechanism. Myoho Renge Kyo is the key, and the text that follows is the inner workings, the mechanism of the lock. And we stick the key, Myoho Renge Kyo, into the lock, and we turn it and click, and then we can open the door. And we open the door to our enlightenment through the combination of Myoho Renge Kyo, the text, and our application of that text. How we use it, how we study it, how we understand its meaning, especially in our life. So, one moment, please. So, Now, whether you say Nam Myoho Renge Kyo or Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, there's a little bit of difference, but fundamentally there's no significant difference. So the proper word is Namu. There's two characters up there, Namu, and then it's Myoho Renge Kyo. One of the, I guess you could say, the characteristics of the Japanese language is so to end a word in Japanese, it's always a vowel sound. And occasionally it'll be an n sound, which is an n. It's, we go n, we go n, but in Japan they go n, that's an n, not an m. So, and when they say words fast, the final vowel sound, which is mu for Namu, the final vowel sound mu sort of elides. And Maxwell, as a linguist major, I'm sure that you can perhaps appreciate the way languages work. So when we're going fast, and the SCI generally does go fast, and it's not my place to comment on that, the mu vanishes sort of, but it's still there. Technically, it's still there. So there's no such thing as na-mu, na or nam myoho renge kyo. It's always namu myoho renge kyo. That's the way it's written. And namu doesn't mean anything. If you take those Japanese characters, and they're just characters to transmit the sound that we make for namu. Now, namu comes from the way the Japanese heard and abbreviate namaste, nama, nama. And they go namu because nama doesn't sound good to them. It doesn't correspond or fit with their language sensibilities and the way they construct their language. Now, for us Westerners, it doesn't matter because we're barbarians anyway, and we'll just say things we want to. Except for Davy in London, and the Brits always are very intelligent in their language. So anyway, but the word is Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Now, Namu, and I'm going to be starting to write my ambitious goal for this year is to finish up 2 books, to begin one and finish up the other. I have currently in work Name of Buddha, or the Name of Buddha, and and this is a more mystical, spiritual experience of the Lotus Sutra and our practice, and then one that I've got a lot of it written in my brain, and I'm eager to get started. And this will be Namu and you, because this is really important to understand. Namu is you. It means namaste. It stands for namaste. Namaste, we know to mean devotion, revere, respect, honor, all of those action words to express our relationship to something. So Namu is our relationship to Myoho Renge Kyo. We can't really separate the two. Namu is you. What's your relationship? If you say, I devote myself, I revere, I honor the Lotus Sutra, and then you go out and start cussing somebody out, that's your Myoho Renge Kyo. You cussing somebody out. Now, we don't find that in the Lotus Sutra. So your devotion, your Namu, your Namaste, is in disharmony, discord with your Myoho Renge Kyo. And so we can think about this. What are my behaviors like? What does my life look like when I'm not all spiritual in front of the Gohonzon? What does our life look like? I know mine doesn't always look like Myoho Renge Kyo. I try, and I'm better than I used to be. And hopefully I can continue to get better. Hopefully I have some more time to do that. And so that's our practice. Chanting Namu Myoho Renge Kyo is fundamental. That's what sort of tunes up our inner guitar strings there, Bill. Maybe you could appreciate that as a bass guitar instructor. It's our practice of the martial arts. It's repeating, repeating, and repeating. Practice doesn't make perfect, but perfect practice makes perfect. And so chanting Namu Myoho Renge Kyo is the perfect practice. And then we slowly make effort to make our manifest Myoho Renge Kyo align with the textual instruction of Myoho Renge Kyo. So the text, Myoho Renge Kyo, is how we should live. And Myoho Renge Kyo itself is the teaching of our life. And Namu is how we participate in that. Do we go out and be assholes? Or do we go out and try to be Buddhas? That is our Myoho Renge Kyo. That's how our Namu relates to that. The more closely that we can get Namu, our Namu, in line with the text of the Myoho Renge Kyo, and therefore manifest and reveal the title Myoho Renge Kyo, the closer we become to enlightened. So this is important. We often don't think. We think Namu Myoho Renge Kyo is just a collection of words, and maybe we know what they mean. Roughly somebody told us it means devotion to the wonderful Lotus Sutra, or the wonderful Dharma flower Lotus Sutra, or the Lotus flower teaching sutra, or however people wish to translate it. But it's really more than that. Myoho Renge Kyo is the direction of our life, and Namu is how we attach to that. And that's the VA calling. VA calling to remind me I have an appointment this week, which I know, and they're quite annoying about that. So pardon the interruption there. We have a few minutes before we need to break for our service this morning. Any questions, please? Any questions? Feel free to ask any questions. Comments. I'm going to go around and ask everybody for their comments. So you will be speaking. That's part of the rules of participating in myosho-ji. Okay.
I have a question.
Okay, Maxwell.
Yeah, sorry. I'm a really curious person. So this is not really related to what you just said, but it's sort of related.
We'll sort it out.
All right. So as I'm becoming more familiar with different Buddhist teachings, I know that Nichiren kind of despised people who chanted the Nembutsu. And what did you say?
Hogwash. Go ahead.
So how do we I know some people who chant the Nembutsu, and what makes chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo specifically better than chanting something else? Obviously they're devotions to different things. So how do we respect that practice? I guess that's my question.
Okay, that's a wonderful question. You may not know this about my history, but and that's okay. My history is not quite that important to know. However, I retired recently, and I continue to do some chaplain work. I worked at a hospital in Charlotte, North Carolina, the last few years, and provide chaplain service. I'm a board-certified chaplain, which means I've gone through all the training and written all the documents and appeared before committee to be examined and approved or selected to be a board-certified chaplain. As a board-certified chaplain, this is different from a clergy person who might visit somebody in a hospital. As a board-certified chaplain, we provide spiritual care to anybody and everybody wherever they are in their spiritual belief and practice. Now, as you can imagine, in North Carolina, that would be mostly Christian. So, so, that was the bulk of my work, was offering prayers for, with, on behalf of Christian patients, sometimes pagan patients. Several times I remember having pagans as either the caregiver of a patient or the patient themselves. Agnostic, spiritual but no religion. Buddhists who weren't Nichiren Buddhists, Theravadan Buddhists. And so what's important is what you do. You know, Nichiren did write some inflammatory documents about the practice of Nembutsu and Zen. And it was a different context then. And they weren't really written to followers. Nichiren's letters to followers are warm, encouraging, and embracing people where they are. And sometimes they weren't even members. Sometimes they weren't believers. And he never said, oh, you're a bad person because you do that. So what he did say is that the government was bad government for supporting one religion over another. State-sponsored religion is always. There's never been an example where state-sponsored religion, well, I take that back, there has been, where state-sponsored religion works very well. In India, there was a time when Buddhism was the model for the implementing of government rules. But it wasn't a mandatory religion. Nobody had to practice Buddhism. It's just that King Asoka believed in Buddhism and felt that Buddhism offered a humane and enlightened way to govern. But never once did he say that you had to practice this. Whereas in Japan, the effort is that you had to practice Nembutsu or Zen. And Nichiren was persecuted by the government. So he's writing these letters in reaction to the persecution that he's received. So unless you're a government person, are you a government person there, Maxwell?
I'm not a government person.
You're not a secret agent or anything?
No.
So, it could be similar to the current trend of evangelicals to think that they can dictate government regulations. And that's harmful. Nichiren Buddhism, if it did that, it would be harmful. That would be contrary or counter to the teaching of the Lotus Sutra. So, whether you chant Nembutsu or Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, that's your business. I hope that you continue to chant Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Maybe you could put the two side by side, or when you're with your friends, embrace their practice. Support them in their practice. I always think, my early history in my early life, so I joined when I was 19. It's like 50 years ago, so probably older than most of you here, and that's okay. I was in the Marine Corps at the time, and when I was stationed in Hawaii, I had two really good friends in the Marine Corps. One was Mormon, and the other one was Baha'i. And we were all three of us very active in our religion. And every night after we get off duty in the air wing, in the squadron that we worked in, we'd go back to the barracks, grab a quick meal at the chow hall, hop on our bikes, and ride off into the sunset off the base on our bicycles in Hawaii, to go practice with our various religious traditions. And in the evening, when we get home, usually maybe 10, 11 o'clock at night, we'd come back to the barracks, and the three of us, we'd hang out and talk about religion all night long. And we weren't arguing with each other. We weren't debating the superiority of one religion over another. We were just exploring, what do your teachings teach in regards to this? What are your beliefs? What do you struggle with in your belief? What do you struggle with in your practice? And that's the kind of environment that, so, you're with your friend who's Nembutsu, what are you struggling with in your faith? How can I support you in your practice?
That's great.
Emerson said that or I'm going to paraphrase from Emerson, that it's less important what religion we belong to, but more important how we use the spiritual practice to improve the life of mankind. You know, and so this is how we should look at the diversity of religion. You know, if you're not comfortable practicing Nembutsu and you're with your friend, you can always be quiet, you know. And, you know, who knows, maybe your way of practicing the Myoho Renge Kyo will influence them and provide them support and maybe curiosity into Myoho Renge Kyo, your practice. Okay. Anybody else question? We've got maybe 5 more minutes that we can spare. And so, yes, Juan?
Yes, well, I wanted to answer something to Manuel, you know, about the choose, why, etc., etc. The first thing, Manuel, I think that...
There's no Manuel here. It's Maxwell.
Ah, sorry.
Yes.
Maxwell. Beg pardon. The Buddha says that there will be a time for a kind of teaching, the Sutra Lotus, the Myoho Renge Kyo, the Daimoku, right? So let's say that if you want to go to Paris, there are different ways to arrive there, but maybe there is one shorter than the other, more direct. So if we believe what the Buddha says and says that the time, there will be a certain time where the shortcut to practice will be the Sutra of Lotus, you know? So that's an answer why to use one. But now everybody is sensitive to something else, and if he studied the Buddhism and says that and follow the teaching and discover that the teaching of Nichiren Daishonin, how we put in evidence that it was the Sutra of Lotus practicing Myoho Renge Kyo, right? You can understand that. Well, you can be motivated to say, well, I'm going to try this one because maybe it could be quicker for me or better for me, you know? That's the way I'm seeing the things.
Okay, thank you. I could respond to that, but I'd rather just leave that hanging there. There's some corrections to be made, but they're minor. Anybody else? Davey, Trey, Bill.
Yeah, it's nice. I like the kind of explanation with the lock that Myoho Renge Kyo is the key. And what's to be unlocked is the following 28 chapters, which is I like that. It's easy. I love things like that because it sticks in my mind and it makes it more simple and I can understand it.
Right.
I haven't thought of it like that before. I like.
Okay, well, good. Well, hopefully you learned something today. Trey.
Oh, yeah, I was just sitting here reflecting on the fact that you had mentioned, you know, that practice, it takes practice. You know, we can't just open this up and say, you know, I'm going to live completely 100% according to the Lotus Sutra without fail today. You know, it takes time. And there's been a little bit of a challenge with me in the beginning because I was like, I'm not a perfect Buddhist right now. It's like, I'm not good at this, or, you know, I don't think I can do it. And it's always good to have that reminder that it is a practice. It's not a perfection.
Bill, thank you, Trey. Bill.
Actually, I'm going to go on with what Trey had to say, and I think
it's okay.
More important things that we encounter and everything, and particularly with like the Eightfold Path, I like the term skillful rather than right, particularly with our upbringing in America. Basically, if you were born in America, you're basically brought up in some sort of Christian ethos. And there's a big difference between skillful and right all the time. Skillful is how you negotiate through things, and your interpretation of something might even be different to get you through 2 different situations. I think that's really about all I have, but I really think that to me, that's really important distinction is skillful. The skillful and equality. I'm still sorting through that from the book on the suchnesses, which I think is a lot there. But those are 2 things that are really important. Now they are to me because I'm trying to sort them out. Suchnesses and skillful rather than right. Mm-hmm. So you make a right-hand turn with a car when you should be making a left. You know, you even have to turn I even have to make a right-hand turn sometimes to pass a car on the racetrack down the road here. So.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, just a brief tangent here, since Bill brought up. So for Maxwell's benefit, the 10 substances he's talking about, the Nyose So, Nyose Sho, Nyose Tai, Nyose Riki. And I, last year, the tail end of, no, it was earlier this year, published a short little book on the 10 suchnesses. So, you know, if someone is starving, has been starving, and maybe a forced starvation, and we want to prepare a feast for them. Well, a skillful feast would be just a small bowl of rice or something easy to digest. The unskillful feast would be to prepare this big banquet to try and fill them back up all of a sudden. And the small bowl of rice would be equal to a banquet, to a person who's suffered from starvation. You know, when you come off of a fast, you don't just go pig out. That could be very harmful or painful. You take a small bite of rice, small bowl of rice, or maybe whatever your tradition or whatever's available. I mean, there are other things that might be as good. I'm not a dietitian, so I can't say, but I do know that filling up the void of the starvation, we might think a feast would be most appropriate. Let's get them filled up. But the real feast would be a small bowl of rice. So that's one way to consider. Hossein, do you have something you want to say? And then we're going to close it up and begin our service. We'll let you have the final word there. Hossein? No sound. Turn your microphone on.
I'm okay with David said before. I like this picture, the key to open the door. The most important is not to find the door, but first to have the key.
Yes, yes. So, oh, what did I just do? I didn't want to do that. Ah, there we go. So, no. I'm trying to get, oh, I know what I need to do. Okay, there. So when I record the video, it primarily just records the speaker in one view. And what I did is I wanted to switch the view on my computer so that we could have all the face tiles up, and we'll close out our service. So again, this is a short service this morning, or a short Dharma talk before our service. And this, one Sunday a month, we devote our service to praying for people with illness or caregivers or the patients themselves. And this can be long-term, short-term. It doesn't matter if you've got a sickness or an illness. We offer those prayers. Normally, we do that on the last Sunday of the month. However, last Sunday, because of my return from Seattle, we have to postpone it. So we're going to do our prayer for ill this morning. So before we begin our service, let us close up our Dharma talk by chanting together Namu Myoho Renge Kyo 3 times, and leave your microphones on so that we can have a big sound cloud, and chant with a big voice and a big heart. Okay? So all together. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you. I'm going to turn the recording off, and then I'll